Coming up on Arirang News, South Korean President Moon Jae-in declares special disaster zones in almost a dozen more regions of the country that have sustained damage from the recent flooding. That'll free up more disaster relief money. The government announces discounts on vegetables at public sector retailers in response to an expected surge in prices because of crop damage from the floods. And South Korea's struggling shipbuilding companies announce a stellar performance for the month of July, winning more than 2/3 of all the ship orders placed around the world. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for tuning in to Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. President Moon Jae-in on Thursday declared another 11 areas damaged by flooding and landslides as special disaster zones, which will free up government relief money. Those are Namwon City in Jeollabuk-do Province, 8 counties in Jeollanam-do Province, and 2 other counties in Gyeongsang-namdo Province. Details are on the website of the Ministry of Interior and Safety. Here's the announcement from the Blue House.
This second round of designations come after the Interior Ministry inspected the damage in flood-hit areas in advance of local governments asking for the designation. The administration will respond quickly to people that have been affected.
With 7 regions designated last week, that's a total of 18. These areas will be eligible to use state money to support restoration work, while the affected people will be able to receive state support for living expenses. The top office said that further designations will be announced after on-site inspections of other areas. Reports say the flooding has likely damaged some of North Korea's nuclear facilities. This is according to the website 38 North, which monitors the regime. It says satellite images show water from the Guryong River has reached the 2 pump houses that service the reactors at the Yongbyon nuclear complex. But it says the water has receded, so the flooding might not have affected key facilities such as the uranium enrichment plant. In the first week of August, North Korea got more than 850 millimeters of rain, almost as much as the typical annual amount of 960 millimeters. Doctors in South Korea are going on strike in protest against plans to train more doctors by admitting more people to medical school and by setting up medical schools that are run publicly. The doctors say the issue isn't a lack of doctors on the whole, but a lack of them in certain regions of the country. The government's asking them to call off the strike. Our Kim Do-yeon reports.
The government has urged doctors to cancel their strike planned for Friday and said it is still open to discussion regarding healthcare reform.
It will be difficult to gain the trust and support of the people by committing actions that delay treatment and could pose a risk to the lives and safety of patients.
The health minister also said that the fundamental goals are the same for both the doctors and the government, which include making sure that medically neglected areas have enough access to high-quality medical care. The government's solution to this is to expand the medical school student quota and create public medical schools. Currently, the country has only around 2/3 of the OECD's average of number of doctors, which means doctors have less time to see each patient. The Korean Medical Association, which represents some 130,000 doctors nationwide, rejects the solution, calling it the cheapest way out. They claim that expanding medical school quota is not the answer, as the real issue is not the number of doctors, but the lack of doctors in certain specialties and regions due to low medical fees and poor infrastructure. In addition, public medical schools will only bring back controversies over increases in the national health insurance premium along with medical bills. The strike on Friday will be the second one and is planned to be much bigger than the first strike on last Friday. This time around, local clinics plan to join the strike and close their services. Seoul City said that around 20% of local clinics in the city said they will close. However, the KMA said medical practitioners whose services directly affect the lives of patients will not join the strike. The government also reassured the public that it has plans in place to protect the safety of the citizens. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The flooding in South Korea is expected to result in higher prices for vegetables. In response, the government's going to provide discounts at public sector retailers. And for jobs, it's announced yet more plans to boost employment in areas related to technology, leisure, disaster relief, and more. Ji-young has the details.
The South Korean government has announced more plans to shore up the economy in response to the coronavirus pandemic and the heavy rain. Finance Minister Hong Nam-gi at the Emergency Economic Ministerial meeting on Thursday vowed to do whatever it takes to help the country recover from the damage caused by the heavy rains.
As the torrential rainfall has caused a spike in the price of vegetables, including lettuces, radishes, the government will provide discounts on vegetables through major supermarkets, including Nonghyap.
The public agricultural cooperative Nonghyap is to hold a special sales event on vegetables for 10 days starting Thursday, and other major retailers are to provide discounts of up to 20% on leafy vegetables. Also on the agenda was creating jobs amid South Korea's employment crisis.
In response to changes in population and the future industrial landscape, the government will foster 14 new promising occupations.
The government is to nurture them by setting new systems and laws, training workers, and financially supporting the related sectors. There are 6 new occupations related to the Fourth Industrial Revolution and digital innovation, including smart construction experts, content creators, and future car engineers. Another 6 are related to livelihoods and leisure, including childcare specialists, culture and arts support coordinators, and interpreters for refugees. 2 other new occupations that the government will support are related to disasters and safety. The government plans to create an additional 64,000 jobs by 2022 through supporting social enterprises. Also, with the aim of being in the world's top 10 countries for service exports by 2025, the government will provide nearly $4 billion to export-oriented service industries. 엄지영, Arirang News.
South Korean shipbuilders had by far the most orders in the world last month, once again overtaking their Chinese rivals. Hopefully a turnaround for an industry that's been struggling. Choi Jung-yoon reports.
South Korea shipbuilders won more orders than those of any other country in July, with more than 2/3 of the total global order book. According to data from Clarkson Research Services, the total volume of orders received by South Korean firms was 500,000 compensated gross tonnage, or CGT, for 12 vessels in July, taking 74% of the total global order size. Chinese shipbuilders came in second, winning new orders for 8 ships, coming to 144,000 CGT, followed by Japanese shipyards with 1 ship at 30,000 CGT. This marks the first time this year that Korean shipbuilders have taken the top spot in the monthly global order book. The stellar performance last month was largely due to the LNG ship order won by Hyundai Heavy Industries. Korea Shipbuilding and Offshore Engineering, a unit of Hyundai Heavy, signed a deal to build 4 LNG carriers for ship owners in Europe and Bermuda, along with 2 more vessels for carrying petrochemicals and a cruise ship. Chinese companies still top the rankings, however, for the first 7 months of the year, with accumulated orders of 3.7 million CGT, taking up almost 60% of total global orders. Korean and Japanese shipbuilders followed at 25% and 10% respectively. Clarkson reported that total orders in the first 7 months of 2020 were just 40% of last year's figure for the same period. That's the sector's worst performance in a decade. South Korea shipbuilders are hoping the strong orders in July mark the start of a turnaround. However, pundits say the industry will only pick up once the COVID-19 crisis has stabilized and world cargo volume jumps back up. Choi Jung-yoon, Arirang News.
Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that, I'm joined on the line by Dr. Kim Se-won, professor of economics at Ewha Women's University. Professor Kim, good afternoon. Thank you for coming on.
Good afternoon, Devin.
Well, oil prices are back now at the highest level they've been since the crisis back in March. U.S. oil inventories are going down and the economy seems to be improving. What's your outlook for oil?
International oil price, represented by Western Texas Intermediate, increased up to about $43 per barrel yesterday, which made the highest oil price in 5 months. Declining oil reserve due to more economic activities in U.S. was the main factor of increased oil price. But there still is resistance for higher oil price because global oil demand is not fully recovered to the level of before the COVID-19 pandemic. So I believe that by the end of this year, the oil price will be staying around $40 per barrel level, and it would be very difficult to exceed $50 per barrel.
Well, overnight on Wall Street, we saw stocks strongly higher, hopes for a vaccine, but also there's been a rebound in consumer prices. The S&P up 1.4%, the NASDAQ up more than 2%. What's the story in the global markets?
U.S. market rallied yesterday over 1% in a day. So U.S. market has extended a steady August rally, which recovered the loss from the pandemic. As you said, this rally was generated by U.S. inflation gets stronger, with 0.6% increase in July, which is much higher than expected. European markets also all had positive returns between 1% to 2% in a day for higher coronavirus vaccine development possibilities.
Here in Korea, the Kospi is higher as well for the 9th session in a row. We hit a new high for the year during the session today. What happened in domestic stocks?
In domestic market, Kospi increased by 0.2%, and Kosdaq also increased by 1.1%. Domestic market today is largely affected by U.S. markets advancement yesterday. So today's Kospi has recovered 2,400 level with finishing price of 2,437.
Now, overall, of course, things are still extremely uncertain globally, but here in the pandemic in Korea, there are some areas of the economy that are doing okay. What are some of those, and what's your view of the Korean stock market right now?
In today's market, Kospi has exceeded 2,400 level, which is the highest level in 2.5 years. So from the bottom of the stock market this year, which is in the middle of March, Kospi return becomes amazing, 68% as of today. Also, gold price increased quickly this year as demands for safe asset increased. Gold price return becomes 34% from the bottom of price this year.
Yeah, gold has been an interesting story this year for sure. Now, last month, data on unemployment benefits paid by the Korean government showed the biggest payouts in history, totaling around $1 billion. The data also suggests big job losses in manufacturing. Tell us about that and what can be done to address unemployment.
Unemployment benefit payments increased up to 1.2 trillion won in July, and this is the highest level in history. After outbreak of COVID-19, unemployment benefit payment increased by 100 billion won every month. Particularly, as you said, unemployment benefit payments to manufacturing workers in their 20s and 30s are increasing quickly because they are the main targets of layoff by manufacturing corporations. And unfortunately, since Korean economy is experiencing structural changes due to COVID-19 shock, it would be difficult to recover an employment level in the short run. So there should be more well-organized help for these laid-off people.
It'll be a lot of help if exports can get going again, for sure. Professor Kim, thanks so much for sharing your insights today, as always.
Thank you very much.
The number of Korean men taking paternity leave this year has risen sharply in the pandemic as the closure of schools left parents to take care of their children at home. According to the Labor Ministry, 14,857 male employees in the private sector took leave in the first half of the year, an on-year increase of more than 34%. And of all parental leave taken during that period, men accounted for 24% of it. The ministry said it expects more than 30,000 men in total will take paternity leave this year. The Seoul city government is going to provide long-term subsidized rental housing to some 3,600 households. The program is for those who do not own a home, with priority going to those on government support, victims of Japan's wartime sexual slavery, and the disabled. They'll be guaranteed long-term leases, potentially up to 50 years, at cheaper than market rates. The homes are in 9 districts, including Gangnam, and residents can apply at community centers from August 24th. Those who are older and have lived in Seoul for a longer period have a greater chance of being accepted. That brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.